Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well today. And given that it's now the bye week and we're not going to have a Seahawks game to talk about this week, I want to talk about some stuff that doesn't directly relate to the team here. I want to explore some maybe slightly unconventional topics here. So we're going to talk about a report that came out this morning concerning the Las Vegas Raiders, and I'm going to relate it to the situation with the Seahawks. First, later tonight, I don't know exactly when, but I'm going to go live on Twitch with Ragnarok, and I'm going to play probably a very long time tonight. So definitely tune in if that interests you. I'm not that far in the game compared to where most people probably are because I wasn't able to play it that much the first week. So if you're playing the game, you're probably ahead of where I am, so you're probably not going to get spoiled. So definitely tune in. I'm back on my normal setup, so it'll have the face cam, it'll have the overlay, all that stuff. So hope to see you guys there. All right. So we got this report earlier today, and it got me thinking about something because, yes, it does tangentially relate to the Seahawks. So the report is that the Raiders won't fire Josh McDaniels because they can't afford to. Now, Mark Davis had a quote yesterday where he came out in support of Josh McDaniels saying, "Oh, we think he's great. We think he's awesome. We think he's a genius. Da 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 da." But now you have this report saying that even if they thought he was an idiot, even if they hated him, doesn't really matter. They can't afford to fire him. The team is cash poor and can't afford to fire McDaniels and then pay another coach. Meaning he's going to be the coach for at least this year and next year for no reason relating to his competence. No reason related to what he actually does as an NFL coach, which has so far looked pretty atrocious. He was very bad in Denver. And 10 years later, or actually 12 years later, he's just as bad in Vegas. But the implication is that they would like to fire him because he's terrible, but they can't because they don't have the money for it. Now, for a long time, the Seahawks have enjoyed not having to worry about things like this, right? Because we had Paul Allen owning the team. And even when we had Jody Allen owning the team and the Paul Allen Trust, either way, we had the wealthiest ownership in the NFL. Paul Allen was wealthier than many other NFL owners put together, and he was the wealthiest by a pretty good amount for a pretty solid chunk of time there. And even when Jody Allen took over and it was the Paul Allen Trust, the net worth of that ownership group was still number one. It's not now because of the Broncos trade, but it's still up there. However, we know that Jody Allen has to sell the team per Paul Allen's will, where he basically said, "I want my assets to be sold and the money put into my philanthropy, my charities, my things that aren't the Seahawks. Basically, I have things that I want to get funded after I'm gone." And in order to have those things funded as much as possible, I need things like the Seahawks to get sold. So basically, whether or not Jody Allen wants to, whether or not the people involved want to sell the Seahawks, per the trust, they're going to have to. And Jody came out and said as much in the offseason. She said, yes, the trust is very clear that I'm going to sell this team. She said that it could be a while. It could be as long as 20 years. I don't believe that it will be. In fact, I think that if you look at the timing of everything, I think it's very likely this team sells sometime in 2024 or 2025. I think that's overwhelmingly likely to be the case. But even if it's like a year later than that or a year earlier than that or whatever, the point is in the next few years, you are looking at the Seahawks being sold. And again, it's not a matter of Jody Allen wants to or she doesn't want to. Seems like she kind of has to, unless she wants to violate the trust, which I assume that would not be a road she wants to go down. So after 20 plus years of enjoying the knowledge that our ownership group had plenty of money and we weren't going to have to worry about things like, oh, well, we can't do this because we don't have the money. We're cash poor. We're stuck with this coach. We're stuck with this GM. We're stuck with this. We're stuck with that. The door is opening for this team to get sold again. And I just want to preach caution with who we end up making this deal with. I don't want the fact that Jody Allen seemingly has to sell to turn into a situation where somebody who shouldn't really be owning an NFL team can swoop in and get it. Because here's the thing: the owner of the Raiders, it's Mark Davis, and I think it's his brother. And if you go to the list of the richest owners in the league, ranked from the bottom to the top, you can see that Mark Davis, his net worth is about $500 million. And you take a look at a couple of the other teams at the bottom of this list who have really low net worths. You have the Mike Brown of the Bengals, less than $1 billion. You have the Bears, $1.3 billion. These are organizations that are kind of known for being incompetently run. Now, you do have exceptions. The Packers don't have any kind of net worth technically. Art Rooney is one of the better owners in the sport, and his net worth is actually pretty low, but still. You cannot help but notice a little bit of a correlation between the owners who don't have a lot of money and the organizations that historically struggle to have success. It's not one-to-one, of course. It's the same for it on the other side of things. Like if you scroll down to the very bottom of the list here and you see the wealthiest owners, well, you've got the Waltons. They just got the team, so that's going to take some time to figure out. Same with Tepper. But you've got teams like, say, the Chiefs. They've been very good lately. They're right near the top of the list. But you've also got Jerry Jones, sixth wealthiest owner in the league, and his team hasn't been to an NFC title game in almost 30 years. Khan, one of the wealthiest owners in the league, $8.5 billion. Jacksonville's had one good season since he bought them, I think. So it's not a one-to-one correlation by any stretch of the imagination, but you would certainly rather have an owner with a lot of money than have an owner who doesn't have money. So when the sale happens, obviously I think some people, I don't know what the public perception is of Jody as an owner right now is. I think it's pretty, I think she's being relatively hands-off here. And so far it seems like things have gone fairly well since she took over, I guess back in, 2018 or 2019. So it seems like things are going fairly well, but there is definitely a desire to find an owner who's going to be a little more driven and a little more involved. Like Paul Allen was. Paul Allen really cared about the Seahawks. He wanted to win. He would do whatever it took to win. But honestly, I don't get the sense that Mark Davis is some doughboy owner who doesn't really care about the team or is completely incompetent. No, I think he wants to win. I think he has some good ideas. I don't think Mark Davis is an incompetent owner that has that team ruined because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. No, I think he wants to win. I think I think this means something to him. He just doesn't have the money. So when the Seahawks go up for sale, this is going to be something very interesting to monitor. Who ends up picking it up? Who ends up the highest bidder on the team? And all I can say is this. Yes, you want somebody who's going to be motivated and driven and desire the wins. But clearly, you're also going to want somebody with a big checkbook, because the cap is going up at a meteoric pace. And these coaches, the good NFL coaches, are going to start looking at that, and they're probably going to go, hey, the players are getting paid way more. I should get paid more too. So it's going to cost even more money to get the desirable coaches, and you're going to need an owner who can afford it. And the good news is, if you take a look at the currently expected list of bidders on the Seahawks, it's mostly guys who would immediately become either the wealthiest or among the wealthiest owners in the NFL. Some people are talking about Bill Gates. He's worth over $100 billion. That would put him well above the Waltons. You have Steve Ballmer. He's right up there with the Waltons. I think he's actually not far away from $100 billion, last I checked. Obviously, these things fluctuate wildly, but Steve Ballmer, you're not going to have to ever worry about being cash poor if he owns your team. You have the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos and Jeff Bezos, both of whom would actually be wealthier than almost every other owner in the league. Bezos in particular, I mean, he would be worth a lot more than even the Walton Group, which is, let me check here, let me see the actual number here, $59 billion. Jeff Bezos would double that. Mackenzie Scott would be worth more than everybody except the Walton Group. And you also have some guys like Larry Ellison who could get involved. He's worth many billions of dollars. Like, I think it's over 50 billion. So most of the guys who are likely to get involved are going to have deep, deep, deep pocketbooks. Deep, deep pockets, I should say, actually. Technically, that's the right term. Robert F. Smith, who's actually another guy listed on this article here, he's also somebody who's got, I believe, right around 10 or $12 billion, which would put him fairly close to the top of this list, as you can see. After the top two, there's a pretty quick drop-off. And after the top four, or top five, you get into the 9 billion, 8 billion range. Only a few of these guys exceed 10 billion. And the interesting thing is the last two entities to purchase an NFL team were David Tepper of the Panthers and the Waltons with the Broncos. And they're both right at the top of this list. So we are seeing a little bit of a move towards, I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise because the NFL, owning an NFL team is so profitable. If to buy an NFL team, you better show up with a ridiculous amount of money. Gone are the days of some fairly rich guy being able to sneak in there and say, okay, I'm going to pick up this team for like $500 million. I'm going to put 40% of my net worth into it and we're good. No, that does seems like that's not happening anymore. You're not sneaking in with a few $1 billion and just saying, well, I'll make it back in a few years. The team will be profitable very quickly. It'll be worth it. No, you've got to have money to burn if you're going to buy a team. So hopefully when the time comes, we do see one of these big names here that has money many times over to buy any NFL team, they make the purchase. Because you look at some of the long shot names, because I was looking at some other articles of guys who may be in play to buy the Seahawks. There are some names where you have to wonder, right? Like Mark Cuban. I saw Mark Cuban listed as a fringe candidate to buy the Seahawks. Apparently 40% or even a little bit more of his net worth is tied up in the Mavericks. So if you're going to ask him to then buy the Seahawks, suddenly Mark Cuban doesn't have very much financial flexibility, right? Because he's got a lot of his money tied up in the Mavericks. Pretty much all the rest of it's going to have to get tied up in the Seahawks. And you might run into a problem like the Raiders did. You've got, the Biscotti brothers, the MMA guys. I'm probably mispronouncing the name. They've got a few $1 billion they could throw at an NFL team, but not too much more than that. That would be an instance of you kind of flying by the seat of your pants. You buy the team and you're trying to make your money back. And if things don't go well for you, then you're facing a little bit of a rough financial spot. That's what I'm a little concerned about as we go into this, because we have to acknowledge it's at least possible, right? It's not like Jody Allen is selling the Seahawks theoretically because she wants to. She's selling it because she has to, so you would figure she just, if the day comes when she feels like, okay, now is the time to sell, she's not going to just be able to say, I changed my mind. I didn't get the offer I wanted. I didn't get the owner I wanted. Let's just keep the team. No, she can't do that, right? This is in the trust. I actually saw one name under consideration was a Howard Schultz, which I don't think any of us would like that, but he's another guy. His net worth is about $3 billion. You're pushing it at that point, right? Like he would probably have to be part of an ownership group. And maybe the ownership group strategy is one that might work. But the bottom line here is the Raiders should be a little bit of a cautionary tale here. This is probably the only time for the rest of my life. I'm 32. I'm not old yet, but even still, this is probably the last time I personally will ever see the Seahawks get sold from one owner to another, because the next person to buy them is probably looking to keep them for a long time because NFL teams are very profitable. Get the decision right. Now, the good news is we're not going to have to worry about like a line of inheritance. I think that's where sports teams can go bad, where they have an owner who really cares, like say George Steinbrenner, and then he dies, the team goes to his children, and they just don't get it. That's where things can go bad. That's not what we're dealing with here, at least. It's going to be sold to somebody who actually went out and bought the team. But when the decision comes, let's not end up like the Raiders here. So That's what I wanted to talk about today. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later on Twitch. Go Hawks.